Imagine waking with a fever in a world without pharmacies, thermometers, or a waiting room playing the same cheerful song forever. Your head hurts, your stomach is negotiating a rebellion, and the nearest person with medical training is an elder who has noticed that you look unusually terrible. Prehistoric illness was dangerous, but the usual picture is too simple. People did not either discover a miracle leaf or immediately die. They had immune systems, practical experience, social care, fire, water, food, and the ability to change behavior when someone became weak. How did prehistoric humans survive sickness without medicine? First, many did not. Infection, injury, childbirth, and parasites left real marks on ancient populations. But healed bones and survival with serious impairment also show that some people lived long enough for bodies and groups to do remarkable repair work. The skeleton preserves trauma better than fever. A broken bone may leave a permanent line. A short respiratory infection usually leaves nothing. This creates a bias. Archaeology can show selected survivors and causes of damage, but it cannot count every cough, stomach bug, or week of exhaustion. One famous example is Shanidar I, a Neanderthal who lived with major injuries and physical differences. Researchers have debated how much help he required. That debate matters. Survival can reflect personal adaptation, group support, or both. It should not be reduced to a sentimental prehistoric hospital scene. Across Neanderthal remains, researchers have identified many healed injuries. Some scholars argue this pattern supports regular healthcare and accommodation within social groups. Others warn that robust individuals can survive more than we assume. The safest conclusion is that care existed, while its exact form varied. Care could begin with a surprisingly modern instruction. Stop doing the dangerous thing. An injured hunter might remain near shelter. A feverish person could be excused from travel. Reduced work saves energy, lowers exposure, and gives the immune system something it always appreciates: fewer additional disasters. Rest was not free. Mobile groups depended on labor. Someone staying behind meant someone else carried fuel, food, water, or children. Caring for illness therefore redistributed work. The patient's survival was partly biological and partly a decision by other people to absorb the cost. Warmth mattered. Fever can make a person feel cold. Injury limits movement. Wet bedding steals heat. A protected position near a controlled hearth, dry grass or hides, and shared body warmth reduced stress. Too close to the fire, however, created smoke, burns, and dehydration. Water was essential and risky. Dehydration makes many illnesses worse, but surface water can carry pathogens. Prehistoric people could prefer flowing water, familiar springs, or cleaner collection points without understanding microbes. Boiling becomes possible with heat-resistant containers or hot stone techniques. Though methods differed by time and place, food had to become easier. A weak person might manage broth-like liquids, softened plants, marrow, or pre-chewed food better than tough meat. Archaeology rarely identifies a meal as patient food, so these examples are practical possibilities, not a universal prehistoric menu prescribed 3 times daily. Wounds demanded attention. Dirt, splinters, and damaged tissue raise infection risk. Rinsing, pressure, and covering can help even without germ theory. Materials had to be chosen carefully. A filthy hide pressed against a wound might convert a small problem into a very committed infection. Fire enabled more than warmth. It provided light for inspection, heated water and tools, cooked food, and produced ash and charcoal. Some materials have useful properties, but natural does not mean safe. The prehistoric world offered plant chemistry with no warning label and no dosage instructions. Plants are the tempting part of this story. Researchers have found residues and dental calculus containing plant compounds, but interpretation is difficult. A bitter plant may be food, flavoring, accidental contamination, or treatment. We should not turn every trace into a pharmacy with a leaf-shaped logo. Knowledge still accumulated. People notice patterns. This bark irritates skin. That plant eases a symptom. This water source causes trouble. This wound smells wrong. Useful observations could be taught. Dangerous mistakes could also become traditions, because confidence evolved long before randomized controlled trials. Parasites were constant companions. Lice, worms, ticks, and biting insects did not require civilization. Grooming, smoke, moving camps, cleaning bedding, and avoiding contaminated areas could reduce exposure. None eliminated the problem, but survival often comes from lowering many small risks rather than solving one perfectly. Smoke deserves special suspicion. It can repel insects and preserve food, yet breathing it damages eyes and lungs. A sheltered fire needed airflow. People who spent years around hearths probably learned which placements filled a cave with smoke and which allowed the air to remain merely unpleasant. Contagion was harder. Without microbial theory, people could still recognize that illness sometimes followed contact, food, or a particular camp. Moving an obviously sick person completely away might remove care they needed. Keeping some distance, separate food portions, or cleaner bedding are plausible responses, but direct evidence is rare. Childhood sickness placed special pressure on groups. Children lose heat and water quickly and cannot explain symptoms clearly. Continuous observation mattered. A child who stopped playing, drinking, or responding normally signaled trouble to adults who knew that child's ordinary behavior. Older people carried another kind of medical value. They remembered recoveries, failures, and seasonal patterns. Age did not guarantee correct knowledge, but experience improved recognition. An elder who had seen the same rash or injury before could offer the most valuable prehistoric diagnostic tool: comparison. Childbirth and recovery also required care, though birth practices preserved poorly. Reduced workload, warmth, food, clean materials, and experienced assistance could improve survival. We should avoid inventing formal midwife roles everywhere, while recognizing that human birth and infant dependence strongly reward cooperative help. Mental distress belongs in the story too, but archaeological diagnosis is extremely limited. Grief, fear, pain, and social isolation certainly existed. Community, routine, touch, food sharing, and story could support distressed people. Naming modern psychiatric conditions from a skeleton or unusual burial is not responsible evidence. Some injuries required long accommodation rather than a cure. A person with limited movement might shift toward tool work, teaching, food processing, or child supervision. Contribution does not have to look identical for every body. Group flexibility could turn impairment from immediate catastrophe into a different daily role. That flexibility may explain why healthcare was not separate from survival. Helping a skilled person recover preserved knowledge and labor. Helping a child protected the group's future. Helping without obvious return strengthened relationships. Practical benefit and compassion do not cancel each other. Human care often contains both. There were also limits. A group low on food or forced to move faced terrible choices. Carrying a severely ill adult across rough terrain could endanger everyone. Archaeology rarely tells us the conversation. It only reminds us that prehistoric care happened under constraints modern clinics are designed to remove. Picture a sick day in a rock shelter. One person rests on raised dry bedding. Another brings water. Someone adjusts the small hearth so smoke moves outward. A child is redirected from climbing directly onto the patient. No miracle occurs. The group simply keeps problems from multiplying. Over several days, the body does most of the healing. The group supplies time, warmth, fluid, calories, cleanliness, and protection. If the person recovers, experience becomes memory. If they do not, the loss still shapes what the group notices the next time similar symptoms appear. This is not modern medicine in fur clothing. There are no antibiotics, anesthesia, or reliable diagnosis. It is risk management built from observation and cooperation. Some treatments helped. Some did nothing. Some probably harmed. The difference was not always visible until generations had repeated the experiment. The deeper lesson is that survival without medicine did not mean survival without healthcare. Healthcare begins before a drug. Someone notices, someone carries water, someone protects rest, someone changes the plan. Technology matters enormously, but attention is one of humanity's oldest clinical tools. So how did prehistoric humans fight sickness? With imperfect bodies, accumulated knowledge, and other people. They could not defeat every infection or injury. They could create conditions in which recovery became more likely, and sometimes that quiet circle of care was the difference between one bad week and the end.